Welcome to the mother relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Set to go down this weekend on the undercard of Dalton Smith versus Jose Zepeda.
Sandy Ryan will be defending her WBO welterweight title against current reigning WBA junior middleweight champion Terry Harper, her fellow Matchroom Valkyrie.
What is a reigning champion? Terry does have a belt. She's got the WBA title at 154. She's moving down for this fight, likely because there's more going on at 147, and there are more familiar faces at 147 than there are at 154.
Natasha Jonas, Jessica McCaskill, Lauren Price,
Kayla Mayer. If Terry Harper makes it through this fight and she takes the WBO title away from Sandy, that opens the door for some of those other fights.
Can she?
Really don't know. Sandy Ryan, the defending champion, she sports a professional record of 6 wins with 1 loss, 1 draw, 2 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 8 professional bouts. To Terry Harper, who sports a professional record of 14 wins with 1 loss, 2 draws, 6 knockouts, having been knocked out once in 17 professional bouts.
She's got 2 times as many fights as Sandy Ryan, more pro experience, more rounds in the bank.
But not the amateur pedigree. She doesn't have the same amateur background as Sandy Ryan, so there is that to consider. This is a tough fight to edge. It is.
Why?
Terry Harper, you know, she's rebounded off that knockout loss to Alicia Baumgartner. She's won a whole string of fights and all of that, become a 2-division champion. She's got a belt at 154. But in her last 2 outings, she really didn't impress me. The Ivana Habazin fight, the Cecilia Brækhus fight. She didn't blow me away. She didn't wow me. I expected her to look better, to look more dominant.
She won.
Those performances, they weren't memorable, whereas Sandy Ryan, comparatively, in her last 2 fights, the fight with Marie-Pierre Huel, the more recent fight with Jessica McCaskill, she looked sharp, she looked strong, she looked switched on. The caveat with her, the caveat with Sandy, is she was with Clifton Mitchell in those fights. She had Clifton in her corner. She's not with him anymore. She's got a new corner, and I don't know what that means. I don't know what we're gonna get.
It's a wild card.
Both Sandy Ryan and Terry Harper have the ability to move around, use the ring, box from the outside, or bang on the inside. They can both do that.
But they do have different sweet spots.
Can both box on the outside and bang on the inside, but Sandy's more of a mid-range to inside fighter, which seems to complement her personality and temperament. She's more spiteful than Terry Harper. Terry's more the boxer, the long-distance fighter, the long-range fighter. Her best punches are her straight punches. You could argue that her money punch is the jab.
Her strongest punches seem to be the punches she can get full extension on.
So perhaps that will give us some insight into how the fight's going to look, that it might be Sandy coming forward, pressing the issue, and it might be Terry on the defensive.
If Terry loses.
If she loses a fight at 147, there's a question as to whether or not that affects her status as a champion at 154. It's not actually her title on the line. What will the WBA decide to do if Terry loses on Saturday?
I've seen this situation play out before with other sanctioning bodies. The WBC.
We've seen it play out to where if a WBC champion goes to another division, it doesn't affect their status in the weight class they hold the title in. Will the WBA extend Terry Harper that courtesy? If she falters, she fails, and Sandy Ryan beats her, stays WBO champion.
I don't know.
In what is a difficult fight to edge, what feels like a sink-or-swim fight of Matchroom Valkyries, is this Matchroom's effort to trim the fat and thin out their stable of female fighters.
Got a pretty good idea what the winner of the fight is going to do, but what happens to the loser?
It's a gamble that Terry Harper did not elect to unify titles in her own division with one of the champions up there at junior middleweight, that she so decided to come down to 147. That does kind of raise the stakes if you pursue a matchroom fighter, a matchroom champion, one of your stablemates, so to speak. If you falter,
I don't know.
We'll talk more about the fight later on in the week.
That amount he said, that amount I can make with anybody. So that's nothing.
You don't think that's the one of the biggest fights that can be made?
I don't. Maybe.
I think it is, but whenever Canelo Alvarez is involved, they're all big fights, aren't they? So he likely can't tell the difference.
One fight from another.
Who knows? But he brings nothing to the table for me. It's he brings just 25 pounds more in the night.
If you're Canelo Alvarez and you've shared the ring with anyone from Floyd Mayweather to Miguel Cotto to Gennady Golovkin and a whole string of champions at 168, you're going to look at David and you're going to say, what's in it for me?
That is, what's supposed to make him so special?
What sets him apart?
The fight on the night. That's it. But if some promoter, not him, because he's nothing to offer me anything.
That's the part that got my attention. Samson Lewkowicz and Team Benavidez have been working hard to try and play the fans against Canelo Alvarez by claiming they've made all these offers.
A la Deontay Wilder and the $50 million email?
It's all a smokescreen. What do you have to offer Canelo Alvarez? Where would you even get that kind of money? It's Canelo that brings that kind of money into the picture, not you.
He's nothing to offer me money, you know? I'm the one.
Do you see what I mean? What I consider Al Heyman's legacy and the real legacy of the PBC, convincing B and C side fighters to act like they're the A side.
Oh, Samson made an offer to Canelo.
With whose money? Because he ain't got no broadcast deal.
The networks.
That's where the money to finance these fights would come from. They would come from a broadcast partner. But Samson Lewkowicz, Samson himself, he doesn't broker any deals with networks. No, Al Heyman does that. And you're under the Al Heyman umbrella, the PBC umbrella. So when you go to the media and you make these claims that you supposedly made Canelo Alvarez an offer, just sounds like a lot of bullshit.
You don't have money to offer anybody.
When Canelo Alvarez said nothing, and who is he being Samson Lewkowicz, to offer me money? It's a joke. It's a fucking joke. And that anybody would believe Samson.
Are you retarded?
You stupid or something? Because you would have to be. What is the hate that Canelo Alvarez has been receiving as of late in the name of Team Benavidez? A mixture of ulterior motives. Some do it just because David's a PBC guy, a PBC fighter, and they have this affinity for all things PBC.
That's why some guys dislike him.
They're hoping that it's a PBC fighter that will topple him. They're hoping that it's a PBC guy that replaces Canelo as the face of boxing, and that's what he is. That's what he still is.
So there's the PBC angle, guys that are diehard fans of all things PBC, all things Al Heyman. That's one angle.
Another is that they never liked Canelo Alvarez to begin with. Another that's not necessarily related to the PBC is there are a lot of guys out there, they just don't like Canelo Alvarez and they move the goalposts.
He can't do nothing right for them.
Even after he unifies a division that David Benavidez was already in for many, many years now, even when Canelo unifies that entire division in just 11 months, becomes an undisputed champion, the first undisputed champion at super middleweight. That's not impressive, but David Benavidez pouncing on overmatched opponents, that is?
Canelo goes in there, knocks out an unbeaten Caleb Plant. David Benavidez, over a year later, fights that same guy. He can't knock him out, but he's bigger and he's younger.
He can't knock that guy out even though he's already been knocked out by a smaller, older fighter. And this is the guy that you're trying to sell me as some kind of fucking monster.
I'm still holding out hope that they fight in September.
I am, because I've never been against that fight. I maintain that if it's gonna happen this year, it's not gonna happen next, it's not gonna be in May. I'd wager if it does happen, it'll be in September.
What about David going up to 175?
Well, he said he's willing to come back down for the Canelo Alvarez fight. He did say that he's willing to return to the super middleweight division for that fight in particular, so the door is not closed.
Then why are people acting like it is?
Ulterior motives, I told you. Ulterior motives. You have Heymanites on one side and Canelo detractors on the other. You also have Terrence Crawford fans.
Aren't you a Terrence Crawford fan?
I am, and I have been for years, but there are those out there who go to extremes. That the moment that Terrence Crawford announced that he would like to fight Canelo Alvarez, he would like to move up in weight and face him, a line was drawn in the sand for them. Now, Canelo is the enemy.
They take shots at him whenever they can.
So you've got all these guys criticizing him for different reasons. Some of them want him to face David Benavidez, others want him to fight Terrence Crawford, others, they don't really even care who he fights because they're going to criticize him anyway.
They're going to move the goalposts.
Heavy is the head that wears the crown, that's what they say. But you see that Canelo doesn't lose sleep over it. He takes it in stride. There's nothing special and nothing that stands out about David Benavidez, and why would it?
He's not a champion.
He doesn't bring anything more to the table than Jaime Munguia brings to the table. In fact, Jaime has more of a grassroots Mexican following than David does.
That's not poo-pooing on a Benavidez fight. That's just saying don't act like one fight is more special than the other. I don't really think it is.
Either fight is fine by me, and I'm still hoping that he makes time to fight David Benavidez. I'm still hoping that it happens.
Canelo said he brings nothing to the table for me, just 25 pounds more on the night.
25 pounds. I wonder if Canelo Alvarez put a rehydration clause on David the same way that Gervonta put one on Ryan, what would people say? Because you have a lot of people, they're very passive.
They're okay when Gervonta Davis does something like that to a goddamn prospect.
What if Canelo did that to David? Oh, they wouldn't like that. I know they wouldn't.
Double standards.
What does the great coach Malachi once said? If not for these double standards, these guys would have no standards at all.
But addressing all this Samson Lewkowicz stuff, it's what I always told you. It's a smokescreen.
It always was, which is why I question if Team Benavidez ever really wanted this fight, or was this all just a marketing angle to make David popular, to get people talking about David, all the while
They weren't really after the fight. Like Wilder wasn't really after Anthony Joshua.
I think about the PBC and what they've got left at this point. What were some of their flagship fighters? Wilder got annihilated by Fury. It's never been the same. Errol just got annihilated by Terrence. Stephen Fulton got annihilated by Naoya Inoue, and I wonder.
Al Heyman never made David Benavidez part of Canelo's 3-fight deal.
And even after they tried to amend that deal, they still didn't offer him David Benavidez. Eddie Reynoso said they never offered them anything for David. Now Canelo says all that stuff from Samson is bullshit.
I know. That's what I've been saying.
So I wonder, was there ever a serious effort to make a fight between Canelo and David, or was it all just a smokescreen to make David more popular?
To Canelo, David's just another body.
He's just another guy. You're the ones talking him up, and you're talking him up because of things Samson Lewkowicz said, what he convinced you of.
Because you're gullible.
Because you're stupid.
You'd have to be to believe that Samson Lewkowicz has any money to offer Canelo.
Finally, ahead of the undisputed title fight set to go down very soon, Tyson Fury uploaded some training footage.
Staying on his toes, moving lateral, boxing on the outside. What I told you he'd be doing, what I expect.
Strategy centered around using your height, using your length to draw the smaller man in and walk him into punches, walk him into shots. I told you, Tyson Fury didn't lose all that weight because he plans on mowing the smaller man down. He wants to box him.
Which I think will only aid in keeping the smaller man in the fight.
Fury's dimensions, extremities, his long arms are seen as an advantage to some, though not to me.
To me, that just means he punches wider than Usyk. He doesn't have a choice.
On one end, it gives him more ring coverage that he doesn't need to be close to Alexander Usyk to touch him.
But on the other, there's more space between his arms.
To cut angles on him, to put punches in there. It's a bigger target. My opinion, Fury's movements are never going to be shorter or sharper than Alexander Usyk's. He can't out-little the little guy. And if you're going in there with the intention of making this a boxing match where you're moving around and you're setting traps...
What do you mean out-little the little guy?
It's often been said that for a man who's around 6'7" or 6'8", Tyson Fury is very light on his feet. He moves well, and he does, for a man his size. But that's all relative.
You move well for a guy who's 6'8", but you don't move better than Alexander Usyk.
Thus, you can't out-little the little guy. Alexander Usyk posted this to his social media, seemingly responding to Tyson Fury's training video, saying, "Your camp just started. Mine never finished."
This is just strategy. This is without the intangibles, the bad habits and the good ones.
Fury's bad habits versus Alexander Usyk's good habits. Character and who wants it more. The desire to become an undisputed champion, what it means to Alexander Usyk and what it doesn't mean to Tyson Fury.
This is without any of that.
Just looking at them, what stands out to me about Alexander Usyk is that his movements are a lot shorter than Tyson Fury's. His punches are a lot shorter, more well-timed and more crisp.
Cleaner.
Fury's a taller guy, bigger guy, longer arms, more ring coverage, but all that ring coverage makes for space in between.
In between his arms, in between a guard.
To put punches in there. In terms of fitness, I don't actually think Tyson Fury's cardio is better than Alexander Usyk's. Now, maybe it's better than your average guy who's 6'8". Maybe it's better than your average guys at heavyweight, but I don't think it's better than Usyk's.
He's not your average guy.
Fury said, "Me and Alexander Usyk is the biggest fight of the century. No fight's bigger than that. Let's not forget, Usyk beat the other fella, Anthony Joshua, twice. That puts him way down the ladder, nowhere near. He's an absolute killer. He's a bad man. Usyk, So how would you underestimate him to be looking at a guy who he's already beat twice?
You already underestimated him. You called him a middleweight.
Now fighting the middleweight is the fight of the century, where before Fury said it wasn't a priority. And this is what I mean.
Now he's a bad man where before he was a little bitch.
Fury is a notorious flip-flopper. Thus, the truth isn't so much in what he says, but what he does. And you'll notice how difficult it was to get him here, to the point where he's about to fight him. Before, he couldn't be bothered to do it. Now,
He doesn't have much of a choice.
you've already had a gimme fight with Derek Chisora in that pointless trilogy. You've already had a circus fight with Francis Ngannou. It's this or retirement.
There's nothing left to do.
And if he retired, having not fought Alexander Usyk and not having fought Anthony Joshua, what would people say?
Now it's the fight of the century, all of a sudden.
Where before Fury said it wasn't a priority. It was never his dream.
Back to strategy.
Less psychology, less intangibles, and more fight mechanics. Usyk's movements are shorter than Tyson Fury, so are his punches. His timing, I think, is better.
Usyk's timing to get in, I think, is better than Fury's timing to keep him out.
Because when you see that he's moving lateral and staying behind the jab, what he's trying to do is create space between himself and the smaller man, the advancing opponent, to walk him into that jab, walk him into those punches.
That relies on timing.
You have to be able to time the opponent's entry, to shoot the jab, land it,
That relies on timing.
try to land it, and Usyk's a slippery one. You know, he moves his head, he moves his torso, he cuts angles outside of the jab or inside of it.
Put punches in there.
There's a lot of talk about Tyson Fury potentially going to Alexander Usyk's body, what's being identified as Usyk's Achilles heel, that he's weak to the body.
It's what they're saying because of the Dubois fight.
Still a lot of discourse and still a lot of debates as to whether or not that was a body shot, a belt line shot, or a low blow. In my opinion, it was a low blow. It was a deliberate low blow. Daniel knew what he was doing.
But it doesn't matter what I think, and it doesn't matter what you think either. The only thing that matters is that the ref made a split-second call. He made that decision because it was his decision to make, not Usyk's, and he ruled it a low blow.
For those who think it wasn't, and for those who think it was a body shot and Usyk is weak to the body, I'll ask again, when has Tyson Fury ever been a body puncher?
It's not saying he never threw a body shot in his life. I'm sure that he has, but he's not known for it.
You think about the strategy, that he's lost all that weight, he's fit and trim, he's slimmed down,
Don't.
and it looks a lot like the strategy is moving lateral to set traps.
We'll see if he can get off a body shot, but I ain't worried about it.
I think Usyk's going to be able to keep up with him, keep on him, and wear him down. Force him to work even when he doesn't want to, in a way that these lumbering lummoxes at heavyweight can't.
Those big guys don't fight at the same pace. They don't set the same tempo that Usyk does for a fight.
Making you think and making you move while he's landing punches, and while you're trying to land punches, likely missing.
That costs energy.
From a purely nuts and bolts perspective, I think Usyk beats him, let alone with the intangibles.